Okay, so as I was doing a part of the quest for Necrom that I found a little bit interesting, but not too much, is one of those parts in Elder Scrolls Online where you just have to go through the motions and go through the quest. Nothing very interesting, very amazing environments and places to visit, but nothing too interesting to say. However, what I love about the experience of the Elder Scrolls Online is that randomly, as I am trying to get an insignia to go somewhere, I found these bookshelves, and for example, this middle one has nothing. It's just a random recipes for something. It's part of the funny thing. Then in the first bookshelf, they tell you a little bit about the Yakudan people, the ancestors of the Red Gods, and how there was some sort of a cataclysm which left their lore and their beliefs in the shadows. So there's not much that we know about the Yakudan people, but in this bookshelf right here, you can find one of those little bits of very interesting lore that sometimes is found in the Elder Scrolls Online. We have to think this is the second era, so this is a long time ago before the events in Oblivion and in Skyrim. So this little book talks about the semblance between some of the deities in the Elder Scrolls lore. In this case, is Tuwaka, which is the Yakudan god Arkay, and Xarxes. You may remember Xarxes from the Mysterium Xarxes in Oblivion, which is this treatise which said that you can create heavens or pockets or realms to create your own heavens in Oblivion, and that's how the whole cult started. It's just Oblivion is a piece of art. But in any case, what they're talking about here is that these gods might be the same, and they talk about how so in this specific book they talk about Xarxes and how he was supposed to be an Almeri priest of Ariel, who was cataloging and writing about the connection between the ancient elves and divinity, the Aedra themselves, and they made the connection with Arkay and how when Alicia freed the people from the ancient elves, she was merely revealing to her subjects God who had been watching over them all along. So there's the connection with divinity. First from Xarxes, who was, it says here, he was brought to divinity by Oriel, and then this whole idea of the elves becoming divinity, being able to become divinity. But in the Elder Scrolls, the lore suggests that only the elves have this divine connection. However, when you think about Arkay and Alicia freeing all these people, you make the connection that if they are the same being, it's just a different set of stories. But at the end of the day, it's the connection between either humans or elves with divinity itself. And now she goes forward saying that there is a correlation to the ancient Admoran gods. And in this case, and what I love about the Elder Scrolls lore is that it goes as deep as to put etymology into the whole thing. So they talk about these Admoran deities and how if you add some things there, you find a correlation between all these deities, and they find this deity called Tuarca, which is what was previous to Arkay, and which is sounds just like the god of the Yakudan people named Tuwaka. So then we have the connection between these three deities that talk about similar events or similar situations or similar characters, just unraveling this one truth with different interpretations from different cultural filters of the races of Tamriel. What I find mind blowing about this is that real religion is the same thing. It's just mere cultural filters of what seem to be the same event, the same things that happened in antiquity, or the same legend that was passed over and over. So I find this absolutely amazing in the Elder Scrolls lore, how deep they go into this. So as it ends here, it says how Tuwaka perform the same functions for the Red Gods that Arkay and Xarxes do for Tamrielic men and mer. Are these gods really separate and distinct deities, or are they all aspects of the same deity, worshipped under different names in different cultures? You must seek the answer elsewhere, for that is where scholarship ends and theology begins. So this is a whole treatise on theology in the Elder Scrolls lore, and this is the whole theory that I'm working on, and I've been talking about this before, and I'm going to talk about this in the future. I think there's a connection between the Aedra and all the races of Tamriel. They say why the Aedra just vanished, just ceased to exist, and all we know is the conflicting personalities of the Daedra, and this is what this expansion Necrom is all about. It's about going through whatever is happening with Hermaeus Mora and putting into question what's the nature of Hermaeus Mora. Is he a Daedra? Is he evil? What's going on with him? And what I think is that the reason why we don't see the Aedra as we, or relate to the Aedra as we relate to the Daedra, as we understand the Daedra, is because in a way we are the Aedra. All the races of Tamriel, the Red Gods, the Orcs, every single, even the Khajiit with their skooma and their shady things that they do, we're all part of the Aedra, of this bigger game of creation. And while the Almighty thought that it was only them as elves were connected to this divinity, all of the races of Tamriel have this intrinsic connection of divinity, but they are blinded, they have forgotten. And this is the path of divinity that even Tiber Septim took upon, and so many others in the lore take this process of ascension, if you may, into such divinity. And we see these in the pocket realms of Ethereus, like Sovngarde and so on and so forth. So what I love is the congruency of the lore, and even though in the Elder Scrolls Online it's not so fleshed out, it's all simple and just basic things, every here and then they give you these little bits of very heavy lore that flesh out all of the previous lore as a whole. And I'm really enjoying this about the Elder Scrolls Online. I think I'm gonna stick with this game for some time now. I find the value in it, and it's amazing. Having a blast in this expansion.